For spine-chilling true stories revealed, sinister tales of haunted lives' cursed encounters. Clara sat on the edge of her bed, the oppressive silence of the night pressing against her like a suffocating fog. Shadows danced on the walls of her quaint Midwestern home, twisting and flickering unpredictably. She tried to shake off the anxiety creeping up her spine, blaming it on another long shift at the hospital. But the whispers, they were back. Always at the edge of her consciousness, slithering through the dark corners of her mind. "Mommy," Emma called from her room, her small voice quivering. Clara's heart raced. "Mommy, there's someone in my room." The fear in her daughter's voice made Clara's legs turn to jelly. She pushed herself up, feeling the weight of her exhaustion claw at her. Rushing down the hall, her pulse quickened with dread, each creak of the old wooden floorboards echoing like a warning. As she peeked into Emma's room, nothing looked out of place, yet her daughter's wide eyes told a different story. "I saw a shadow, Mommy. It was watching me." Clara swept Emma into her arms. She wanted to reassure her, but the same chill that gripped her little voice twisted in Clara's gut, chilling her down to the bone. "It's just your imagination, sweetie," she murmured, not fully believing it herself. They returned to bed, each heartbeat against her chest escalating in tempo, drowning out the soft echoes of whispers puncturing the stillness. Days blurred into nights, and each evening brought with it a series of peculiar occurrences. Toys shifted inexplicably, the familiar lullaby of the wind turned malicious as it rattled the thin window panes. She would awake, heart pounding, convinced she heard footsteps creeping down the hall. "It's just fatigue," she told herself, but the walls throbbed with a sinister energy, something unspeakable lurking beneath their shiny exterior. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That very night, Clara heard Emma murmur again in her sleep, "Don't go, don't leave me," words that sent icy fingers creeping up her spine. Gripped by fear, Clara decided to confront Mr. Thompson. He had always been kind, the neighbor who would offer a listening ear or a pot of soup on long nights when she needed it most. But lately, she sensed a veil of familiarity that felt as ominous as the shadows beneath her roof. Knocking on his door, her heart raced. His features twisted in surprise as he opened up. "Clara. What brings you here?" His affable demeanor felt too sharp, too calculated. "I need to know about the whispers. The things in our neighborhood. The stories," she stammered. The moment the words left her lips, she saw something shift in his eyes, a flicker of recognition but laced with fear. "Urban legends, Clara. Nothing but tales," he began, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were more than just stories. As he spoke, doubts began to knot in her gut like vines tightening around her insides. It felt like a trap he was crafting, the very walls around her becoming conspirators in a plot she couldn't decipher. Just then, the piercing creak of her front door echoed through the open space, sending her into overdrive. The phone line was dead. Something, or someone, was inside her house. The truth, buried like leaves under an unyielding winter, began suffocating her awareness. Clara staggered back, caught between trust and terror. Shadows moved closer, a sensation of being hunted filtered through the air. What darkness lurked beyond her home? She could no longer ignore the cold truth, nor could she dismiss the specters whispering just outside her reach. What awaited her inside those walls would break her very sense of safety, and she had to find out, even if it led to a fate worse than she could imagine. Clara stood frozen in Mr. Thompson's doorway, her mind racing. The air felt thick, almost alive, pressing against her skin. She wanted to bolt, to run back to Emma, but the thought of whatever was lurking in their home kept her rooted in place. "Clara, are you okay?" Mr. Thompson's voice cut through the haze, but it felt insincere as it dripped with concern disguised as curiosity. The tension in his posture, the way he shifted his weight nervously, sent a shiver down her spine. "You said urban legends?" Clara managed, her voice barely rising above a whisper. "What legends?" He hesitated, a flicker of indecision crossing his features. "Just, stories of things that happen after dark. You saw the news, right? Mysterious disappearances, shadows lurking. It's all just a phase, a community fright, nothing real." Clara felt the hairs on her neck prickle. But Emma, before she could finish, a sharp sound ricocheted from her house, followed by an echoing silence that stung her ears. A low whisper, almost mocking, caught in her throat. With growing dread, Clara turned to run. She felt the need for the comfort of home, yet the thought of what might be waiting for her just beyond the threshold made her insides twist with fear. Mr. Thompson's voice jolted her back. "Wait. Clara, you don't have to go back alone." But her heart was already pounding, the way pulsing adrenaline propels the body into action. She waved a hand weakly, trying to dismiss his concern, but when she pushed out into the night, it felt more like leaping into an abyss. As she rushed back toward her home, shadows clawed at her from the periphery of her vision. The streetlights flickered ominously, as if aware of the danger lurking close by. She could feel the whispers swirl in the air, taunting her, twisting her thoughts like a cyclone. Mommy Emma's voice echoed in her mind, amplifying her panic. She threw back the door, the creak splitting the night's silence, and stumbled inside, her heart pounding in her ears. She called for Emma, her voice trembling. "Emma. Sweetheart, are you here?" The house was eerily quiet. The faint hum of the fridge was the only sound, but even that felt like it was somehow mocking her. Clara rushed through the rooms, her skin prickling, each shadow causing her breath to hitch. In Emma's room, the little girl was gone. The bed was neatly made, but its emptiness screamed. "Emma!" Her cries filled the air, choking on desperation. She frantically searched every corner. The living room, the kitchen, but there was no sign of her daughter. Terror gripped her. Did Emma's whispers belong to something more sinister? Suddenly, from the corner of her eye, Clara saw a dark shape slipping behind the curtain. Her heart raced as she approached, the air thickened, almost resisting her steps. She yanked the curtain aside, but nothing was there. Just the innocent glow of the streetlight spilling into the room. Was it her imagination? Doubts clawed at her sanity. She heard something then soft, low giggling from the back of the house. It was sweet, yet it twisted in her gut, sending alarm bells ringing in her head. "Emma?" She called out again, voice trembling with each syllable. Panic surged through Clara, pulling her toward the source of the laughter. As she moved down the darkened hallway, the giggles morphed into whispers, now mocking, twisting into sinister laughter. Her pulse raced. Something was terribly wrong. Approaching the door to the basement, a door she had never dared to open, her breath hitched. "Emma?" The name fell from her lips hesitantly. The whispers stopped abruptly. A haunting stillness filled the air, sinking deep into the marrow of her bones. What lay below? The answer dangled just out of reach, but something was calling to her, a chilling invitation. Steeling herself, Clara grabbed the doorknob, her hand shaking. With a swift pull, the door creaked open, revealing an inky abyss that seemed to breathe with menace. Shadows crawled around her, and she felt their pull, heavy, insistent. Would she descend into that blackness? What awaited her in the darkness? As Clara hovered on the threshold of the unknown, dread twisted in her gut. The sound of her daughter's voice echoed once more. "Mommy, where are you?" Clara's heart thudded in her chest, a drumbeat of desperation. The basement door loomed before her, urging her to step into the darkness. She couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just a basement, it was a gaping maw waiting to swallow her whole, to consume every shred of hope she had left. "Emma!" She shouted, her voice cracking like fragile glass. The basement replied only with a heavy silence, the shadows deepening as if to mock her. She took a shaky step forward, feeling the cool air from the stairs wash over her like a tide, an ominous whisper beckoning her deeper. With another breath, Clara stepped inside, the light from the house behind her flickering like a dying ember. The stairwell descended into blackness, each step creaking ominously, protesting her intrusion. The giggles from moments before echoed again, softer now, but the laughter had turned into a chilling melody that twisted through the air. "Mommy." The voice was clearer now. A flicker of light pulsed somewhere in the depths below, illuminating fragmented shadows that danced against the cold, stone walls. Her instinct screamed to run, to escape, yet her legs moved as if possessed, driven by a magnetic force toward the light. The basement appeared wider than she'd imagined, filled with twisted shapes, boxes, old toys, and remnants of a life long abandoned. "Emma!" Clara called again, desperation clawing at her throat. The shadows seemed to shift, to bend closer with each frightened word she spoke. As she moved further in, the oppressive air thickened, brimming with something unnameable, a darkness that sneered at her courage. Clara's hand brushed against a dusty chest, its lock rusted and tangled in cobwebs. For the briefest moment, she considered opening it, the urge rising like bile in her throat, but she dismissed it. What could be hidden inside that would help her? A soft giggle resonated from the far corner of the basement, drawing her like a moth to the flame. "Emma?" She was almost there now, teetering on the edge of panic and hope. The giggles transformed into sweet whispers that entwined around her mind, wrapping each syllable in a shroud of unease. Then Clara glimpsed something, a flash of pale skin, a tiny hand reaching out through the sliver of light. "Mommy! Help!" Emma's voice strained through the darkness, a desperate plea that inverted despair and crushed it into her core. The shadow loomed closer, morphing, splitting into countless figures that danced at the edges of her vision. They were children, she realized with threat-laden clarity, figures twisted in time, eyes wide with longing, and mouths turning up into vicious grins. Their laughter, once innocent, transformed into an echo of tormenting giggles, swirling like a tempest. Clara hesitated, torn between fleeing and saving her daughter. "Stay back!" she shouted, her voice trembling. If these spirits were nothing but echoes of lost souls, what were they willing to take from her? And were they willing to give anything back? Another whisper drifted through the musty air. "Join us, Mommy." It was sweet, laced with malice, sent straight into her heart. Clara took another step back, fear clawing at her. All at once, the power surged, and she felt the air crackle with energy. It wasn't a friendly invitation, it felt more like a threat. She needed to get Emma now. She could not linger here, not with darkness creeping closer. "Emily, come to me!" She screamed, voice breaking, and sprinted toward the flickering light, but just as she reached the center of the room, the light flickered out. Panic seized her. The laughter crescendoed into a shriek that shattered the silence. She was plunged into a world of shadows, dark figures closing in, the chilling void swallowing her cries. "Mommy!" Clara spun toward the sound, dread pooling in her stomach. She couldn't see Emma, a spark gone cold in the night. Each heartbeat thundered in her ears like a ticking clock, but all she could feel was the tightening grip of despair. Where was her daughter? What had she awakened in this cursed basement? As her breathing quickened, the darkness swallowed her whole. The air stretched thin, and she choked on the shadows. Then it stopped. Everything went quiet. The faces watching her held their breath, and Clara felt her mind teetering on the edge between dread and something unfathomable. In the suffocating silence, just as she thought she had lost everything, a new sound emerged, a low, ominous growl that rippled through the dark. What was that? Clara stood paralyzed, waiting for whatever horror awaited her next. What awaited her in the shadows, and would she emerge with Emma, or would they become part of the haunted whispers forever? Clara's breath hitched as the growl reverberated, a primal sound that felt alive, wrapping itself around her heart like a vice. It came from all directions, the very walls shuddering in response, an echo, a warning, or something worse. "Emma!" she shouted again, desperation twisting in her gut. The shadows responded with silence, thickening around her like poison. She strained her ears for any sign of her daughter, any faint whisper amidst the cruel cacophony of laughter that seemed to mock her. She stumbled deeper into the darkness. With every step, the air grew heavier, thick enough to choke. Clara felt it smothering her, wrapping around her body like an unwelcome embrace. The low growl escalated, a nightmare come to life, resonating with anger and hunger. A primal terror clawed at her, urging her to flee. But where would she go? The path behind her was swallowed completely, an inky black wall looming where the light once was. The laughter of the ghostly children swirled around her like a storm, intensifying the dread that seeped into her bones. Then she heard it again. "Mommy!" Clara turned sharply toward the sound. Was that Emma? She could not tell if the voice came from inside her mind or if it truly echoed in the space around her. The flicker of hope ignited her resolve. She surged ahead. "I'm coming, baby." Suddenly, she felt a sharp tug on her sleeve, a cold grip that sent shivers racing down her spine. Clara whipped around but saw only shadows. A cacophony of whispers filled the air, a chorus of lost souls spiraling around her. "Join us. Stay with us, get away from me," she cried, voice trembling but fierce. Clara strained against the icy fingers that seemed to probe, searching for cracks in her spirit. They wanted her. The dark wanted her to lose hope, to sink into despair like the children trapped in the shadows. A flicker of light burst forth, illuminating a segment of the basement. Clara gasped. She saw the faces of the children, their eyes wide, hollow pits that glowed with a haunting light. They swirled like autumn leaves caught in a windstorm, their mouths twisted into grim smiles. Some reached out to her, skeletal fingers beckoning her closer, while others pointed beyond her, toward a darker corner. "Mommy!" Emma's plea pierced through the chaos. Clara surged forward, her heart hammering in her chest. She could see the outline of Emma now, a fragile silhouette being swallowed by the shadows. "I'm coming!" Clara screamed again, forcing her feet to move, to push through the darkness that tightened around her. The growl rose again, an animalistic warning filled with wrath. "Stay!" it thundered, reverberating through the stone walls. Clara hesitated, her pulse racing, her instincts screamed to turn and run. But just then, the moans of the trapped children shifted to a symphony of anguish, driving her onwards, each note keeping the fear at bay. As she reached the boundary of light, a cold, wet mist brushed her skin. It slithered, chilling her bones and fogging her breath. Shadows danced at the periphery, angry, desperate to keep her from her goal. Then she caught a glimpse of Emma, glowing faintly just beyond the shadows, a small hand reaching out to her. "Mommy! Please! Help me!" Clara lunged forward, arms outstretched, ready to break through the veil of darkness. But as her fingers brushed the edge of the light, a horrific scream erupted around her. The shadows convulsed, transforming into anguished faces, their mouths stretched wide in silent screams. "No!" Clara howled, retreating a step as the shadows lunged toward her. The air crackled, the ground trembled, and suddenly she was swept away, lost once more in the freezing dark. Clara slammed back against a wall, panic clawing at her. The laughter returned, but now it was a mocking taunt, cruel and sinister. "Join us, Mommy, forever." Desperation clawed at her throat. "Where is Emma?" She screamed into the abyss, and then, a growl emerged once more, more ferocious, reverberating through her very bones. The shadows shifted, and in the midst of the chaos, a chilling voice whispered, "To find her, you must give up your light." Clara shuddered, her resolve faltering in the face of darkness. What would it take to save Emma? Would she be forced to sacrifice everything she had left? The shadows pulsed around her, and the laughter grew louder as she prepared to face whatever horror awaited. The darkness thickened, and she felt herself slipping away, then silence. But the question lingered in the air like a noose: what price was Clara willing to pay for her daughter's safety? Clara pressed her back against the wall, her heart pounding like a drum echoing in an empty stadium. The oppressive silence stretched out, mocking her as if daring her to make a sound. She fought against the urge to scream, her throat constricted with terror. The darkness loomed, heavy and hungry, waiting for her to relinquish her light. "Emma!" she shouted again, desperation slicing through her voice. It was a call to her daughter, but it felt like an offering, a ripple in the dark that invited something sinister in. Her words hung in the air, swallowed by the shadows, before dissolving into a deep, chilling silence. No answers came, only the memory of Emma's desperate plea resounding in her mind. Clara clenched her fists, nails digging into her skin, a feeble anchor against the despair creeping in. She had to keep moving, to find her daughter. But every hesitant step forward felt like a surrender to the void that thrived on her fear. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught her eye, a shadow darting across the dim light. Clara froze, straining to catch a glimpse. Was it Emma? The glimmer of hope felt like a hologram, drawing her in. She stepped forward, the cold mist wrapping around her ankles like a serpent, squeezing tighter with each breath she took. "Mommy!" The voice was unmistakable, each syllable laced with both terror and affection. Clara's heart surged, conflicting waves crashing within her. "Come on, just a bit closer." Before she could grasp the light again, the growl erupted louder, closer, filled with a rage that vibrated through her bones. "Leave her be!" Clara shouted, alarm pouring from the depths of her soul. The shadows roared in response, swirling with malevolent energy. The ground beneath her seemed to shake, echoing the anger of the dark. And then, as if to mock her bravery, the laughter returned, gleeful, twisted, and unending, echoing off the cold stone walls. "Leave her? Oh, dear Clara, you misunderstand the nature of things here." The voice floated through the air, smooth and chilling, like ice sliding down her spine. It was the shadows speaking, embodying their power as they coiled tighter around her. "Stop. Just stop!" Clara screamed, fighting back against the terror clawing at her thoughts. She had to remember her purpose, to focus on Emma. Nothing else mattered. But the shadows were relentless. They offered her visions of despair, glimpses of a broken world where children wandered lost, their skin pale and eyes dark, eternally trapped in a young hell without release. It was a warning and a lure, promising freedom in exchange for submission to the deep gloom. Clara blinked rapidly, shaking her head as if to scatter those horrid images. She pressed on, knowing she was trapped between her deepest fear and her overwhelming love. "I'll find you, Emma. I promise." With each pulse of icy air, she felt her resolve hardening. Clara stumbled toward the faint glimmer, determination igniting like a match in the dark. "Where are you?" she pleaded, desperation rushing with her, sweeping away the shadow's seductive grasp, if only for a moment. "Mommy," the voice trembled, barely a whisper lost in the chaos. It was softer now, pleading, as if the dark heard her resolve and fed on it. "Mommy, help me, please." Clara's resolve splintered. "I'm coming," she cried, every ounce of strength pouring into that one desperate step toward the light. But just before she could reach it, the shadowed wall lunged forward, blocking her path. A chilling laughter erupted, echoing all around her. "You will leave your light behind, Clara. Join us." The shadows twisted, morphing into grotesque faces, bearing witness to her struggle, mirroring her fear. "I won tea," she shouted defiantly, but the certainty slipped from her grip. The shadows pressed in closer, coiling around her limbs, dragging her down, trying to extinguish the light she had left. Just before it closed in, she felt an overwhelming warmth, a flicker of Emma's spirit pushing back the darkness. As Clara choked against the creeping despair, she realized the price would she have to embrace the dark herself. To save her daughter? What power could turn her into a beacon for Emma? The question ignited within her, flames battling frigid shadows. Time slowed, tension swelled, breath came in labored gasps, and Clara stood on the edge of a choice. "Do you dare?" whispered the shadows, their voices a sickly sweet melody wrapping around her heart. Would she dare to dim her own light for Emma's safety? And in that choice, the abyss crackled, ready to consume everything she held dear. Clara stood frozen, her heart a war drum, thundering against the electric tension. The shadows whispered dark promises, pulling at the seams of her will. "Join us," they coaxed, their voices lacing through her mind like poison. What if they were right? What if surrender could save Emma? The thought slithered through her, icy and tempting. "Mommy!" The cry broke through the heavy fog of despair, raw and desperate. Clara gathered herself, fighting against the alluring grip of the dark. She squeezed her eyes shut, envisioning her daughter bright, laughing, wrapped in sunlight. That memory fueled her, a shield against the fracturing shadows. The growl thundered again, a reminder that time was slipping. The shadows twisted in anticipation, hungry for her submission. Clara opened her eyes, defiance burning within. "I am coming, Emma. I will find you." With renewed determination, she lunged forward, tearing against the dark. But the shadows weren't done. They morphed and surged, taking grotesque shapes, faces of children crying out for help, mouths opening in silent screams, their hollow eyes pleading. It was a twisted lure, a reflection of every fear she'd ever harbored. Clara stumbled, but her resolve remained solid. The beast revealed itself a mass of darkness, shifting and writhing, eyes glowing like embers from another world. It stood between her and the glimmer, blocking all paths to salvation. "You seek what's lost," it hissed, its voice like thunder rumbling in the distance. "But you will never find her." Clara's mind raced. The light, where had it come from? Beyond the creeping shadows lay something waiting for her, a flicker of hope tethered in the night. She reached out, willing her heart to extend beyond the darkness. "Emma!" she shouted again, fighting back panic. "Where are you?" "I'm here." "Mommy!" The response was faded, a feather of sound barely making it through the chaos. Clara felt the presence draw nearer, the shadows recoiling, teetering on the brink of retreat. Fueled by desperation, she pulled energy from somewhere deep within, stronger than her fear. The shadows sniggered, sensing her growing strength. "You think you can fight us?" they mocked, swirling around her in a tempest of darkness, arrows of dread piercing her resolve. But Clara pushed through, envisioning all the laughter they'd shared. She pictured Emma's sweet smile and bright eyes, the light of her love seeping into every corner of her heart. With fierce clarity, she called again, her voice echoing off the walls. "Emma! I'm coming for you. I will not be afraid." The darkness seemed to momentarily hesitate, as if caught off guard. Clara seized that moment, sprinting forward with all her might. She stumbled against the grasping shadows but kept moving, clawing through their cold embrace. Suddenly, the glimmer returned, brighter this time, a beacon cutting through the haze. Clara pushed herself forward, chasing after that light. Her lungs burned, exhaustion waning under the weight of her love. Would this light be the sign she needed? Or merely an illusion? As she lurched forward, a force yanked her back, the shadows regrouping, trapping her in their web. "Leave her be!" they howled, the cacophony threatening to drown her resolve. "She belongs to us now." "No!" Clara screamed, fighting against the grasping limbs of the darkness. As she focused, she felt Emma's warmth again, their bond radiant in the bleak expanse. It intertwined with her spirit, lifting her, infusing her with unyielding strength. She refused to surrender, refusing to be another wisp in the darkness. With one last push, Clara broke free and lunged toward the light, uncertainty pounding in her chest. The shadows roared, enraged, shrieking their fury as they followed, clawing at her heels. She barreled ahead, lungs gasping for air, eyes fixated on the glow promising safety. Would she reach it in time? Would love conquer the shadows, or would the darkness swallow her whole? The light pulsed and flickered as Clara drew close, each heartbeat a rolling wave of tension. She reached for it, every ounce of her being stretched toward that infinite glow, desperate for her daughter's safety. And just as her fingertips grazed the edge of light, she heard it, the dreadful laughter of the darkness, echoing in triumph, like a death knell. Welcome to the abyss, Clara. What awaited her on the other side? The light enveloped Clara, blinding and brilliant. As her vision adjusted, she staggered, breathless, amid a landscape that felt both familiar and alien. Gone were the twisting shadows and choking darkness. Now all around her was an endless expanse of white mist, swirling and drifting like the breath of lost souls. Emma! She cried out again, but the name vanished into the haze, swallowed whole by an unseen force. Panic flared in her chest, sharp and cold. Where was she? A faint giggle echoed in the distance, that unmistakable spark of joy that sent shivers down her spine. Her heart raced. Emma? Courage surged, binding her fear and igniting a resolve deeper than before. She rushed into the mist, the ground rising unevenly beneath her feet. The world shifted. The mist thickened, transforming into shapes reminiscent of memory's childhood laughter, a swing set creaking in the wind, a warm kitchen filled with the smell of cookies. Clara stumbled through the scenes, desperately searching for her daughter. Emma! Where are you? The shadows loomed at the periphery, their laughter now mingling with the innocent giggles. You'll never find her, Clara, they sneered, their voices echoing from the fog. They were persistent reminders of her fears, her failures, her regrets. How had she let it come to this? A flash of movement caught her eye. There, darting between the veils of mist, was a small figure. She ran toward it, heart pounding. Emma! The figure turned, a girl with golden curls that danced like sunlight, a smile that could warm the coldest of hearts. Mommy! The voice rang out like a bell, clear and full of love. Clara's heart soared, but even in her joy, hesitation gripped her. It felt too easy. Come, Mommy. Emma beckoned, the child's arms stretching wide. Yet as Clara closed in, the mist shifted again. The shadows hissed, weaving together to form a barrier, taunting and pulling her back. Stop! Clara yelled, pushing against them, her hands clawing at the thin air infused with dread. Let me through. But they tightened their grip, absorbing her words, laughter fueling their power. Choose, Clara. Stay with us or chase what you cannot keep. The mist swirled violently around her, dark and suffocating. She felt a cold hand brushing against her shoulder. The shadows were feeding on her despair, whispering promises of strength and solace, offering her acceptance in their haunting arms. You can have her forever, Clara, they murmured, seduction draping every syllable. Torn, she glanced back at the vision of her daughter. Emma's eyes shone with innocence and a purity that cut through the temptation like a knife. Mommy! Please! Clara's heart twisted as she faced the dark force before her. You're lying! She shouted defiantly, summoning every ounce of strength left in her trembling body. In that moment, the shadows shrieked in frustration, crumbling and retreating, but Clara knew it wasn't over. Emma! She cried, the desperation now raging through her veins, igniting a fire that would not be dimmed. She lunged forward, dodging the cold tendrils, each one brushing against her skin like ice. The figure of Emma began to dissolve into the mist, replaced by the grinning faces of the defeated shadows. You'll pay for this, Clara hissed the darkness, their whispers laced with venom. You cannot escape. You will suffer. Clara pressed on, hands outstretched, heart racing. I'll never let you take her. She screamed, desperate for the light to return. Emerald sparks blazed through the mist, lighting her path, guiding her forward in a race against time. With one final heave, she crashed through the barrier, teeth gritted, tears blurring her vision. It was as if she had torn a veil. The world exploded in color, sunlight pouring down upon her, illuminating every inch. But the laughter remained, continuing to echo from the shadows behind her, distorting into a melody of dread. This isn't over, Clara. This is only the beginning. As she stepped into the brilliance, a chilling thought struck her. What if they were right? What awaited her on the other side of this newfound freedom? Would her battle truly end, or had she merely awakened something far more sinister? With terror crawling up her spine, Clara realized she'd soon find out. The world around Clara transformed again, shifting gears as though it were a dream turning nightmarish. The bright colors bled like paint on canvas, merging into alarming shades of gray and black. She felt an unsettling weight on her chest, heavier than before. The innocence of the past had scattered like ash in the wind. Where am I? The words faltered as they tumbled from her lips, swallowed by the very fabric of the mist. Each breath she took was filled with anticipation and dread. She looked around, panic swirling within her. The mist caught familiar faces, each one twisted by an unseen hand. Friends turned foe, family warped by darkness. Suddenly, the giggle that had once seemed so sweet echoed again from the depths of the haze. Emma. The name was a prayer, a plea carved from desperation. But the laughter curled and twisted, dragging her hope to its grave. Clara, a whisper slithered into her ear, seductive and cruel. You can't save her. The shadows surged, crawling like insects across her skin, prickling with cold. They danced in her peripheral vision, their laughter taunting, full of cruel amusement. No. You're wrong. A fire ignited in her chest, pushing her forward. She stumbled but refused to fall. Emma needs me. Through the curtains of mist, dark figures emerged, their eyes glinting with malice. A gaunt man grinned, his expression predatory. You're awake now, Clara. Welcome back. You've been so lost. Their forms shifted like smoke in the dark, each minion of the shadows invading her space, spreading dread. Leave me alone. She shouted, trying to move through the thickening fog. But the more forcefully she pushed forward, the more the shadows bared their fangs. They clawed at her resolve, digging deep into her mind, dragging forth images she'd buried long ago, the arguments, the heartache, the moments of despair. Feel it, Clara. Embrace what you've denied. They engulfed her, and for a heartbeat, she thought she saw Emma's face reflected in their soulless eyes, a brief flicker, a remembrance. With each step, Clara felt fragments of herself being siphoned away. Guilt wrapped around her throat like a noose. She stopped, gasping, battling against the suffocating tide. I can fight you. I won't give in. She roared, her voice cracking. The shadows recoiled, and for a moment, a silence fell, heavy and ominous, but the weight of years piled back upon her. Memories churned in her mind, the crowded playground, Emma laughing, her daughter's arm flailing as she fell. The guilt of being a single mother felt like a ghost clawing at her. Stay with us, Clara, the shadows soothed, their tone dripping with mock respect. You've always belonged here. An icy hand grazed her neck. She flinched, clutching at her skin, her heart hammering. Her breath stilled as she faced the swirling fog ahead. Emma. What if she doesn't want to be saved, Clara? The voice echoed, intertwining with the giggles of her child. What if it's better here? No. More screams echoed around, cries for help, voices of children lost in the mist, their cries cruel mimics of purity. With renewed strength, Clara pushed through, fighting against the illusions. She raced deeper, visions whirling around her, broken photo frames, dim lights from an empty room, her own terrified scream lingering in the air. Shadows coiled tighter, threatening to crush her resolve. The moment was now or never. As she sprinted forward, she caught a glimpse of a path illuminated by an unknown light, pulsing with the rhythm of her heartbeat. If she could just make it, but then, the figures surged, blocking her way, laughter mixing with Emma's fleeting echoes. It's too late. They jeered, coiling around her, a tightening snare of despair. You'll never find her again. This is where you belong. The world blurred and darkened. Clara took a deep breath. "I'm not done yet," she gasped, plunging toward the light, heart racing, ignoring the voices urging her to give in. As she lunged forward, a hand reached back, a fleeting touch against her own. In that split second, she realized the truth: time was running out, and she was not alone. What lay ahead would either break her or lead to the salvation she craved. And in the stillness, as she pushed onward, a sinister thought crept into her mind. What if the darkness was only getting warmed up? What if this was just a game being played with deadly consequences? Clara's eyes met the flicker of the light, a beacon that pierced the fog like a knife. She could feel the warmth radiating from it, pushing against the cold dread wrapping around her like a shroud. Every inch she gained felt like a battle, as the shadows clawed at her ankles, whispering her failures and unworthiness with words dripping in venom. The more desperation surged within her, the louder they became. "Give in, Clara," they taunted, their voices a mockery woven from her past. "What's the point in being brave when you've lost everything?" Her heart thundered in her ears. She didn't want to look back, she couldn't afford to acknowledge the darkness anymore. But doubt coiled tightly around her heart, squeezing until she felt breathless. What if she really was too late? What if Emma was already lost? Emma, the word escaped her lips in a breathless whisper, filled with both fright and longing. "I'm coming for you." But the shadows surged forward, forming a wall of darkness, grotesque and shifting. Among the faces, she spotted one that made her blood run cold, a figure she recognized all too well, a version of herself, twisted and darkened, devoid of hope. "You think you can save her?" The distorted reflection laughed, its voice echoing with all her doubts. "Why would she want to come back to you?" The laughter cut deep like a rusty blade. Clara's resolve tested, she pushed harder against the encroaching shadows. She felt her memories unspooling her disagreements with Emma, moments when she could have chosen differently and hadn't. Each recollection struck her like a hammer, creating cracks in her spirit. No. It was like a dam breaking within her, and a fierce light poured out along with the tension she was holding. "I love her. I made mistakes, yes. But I'll fight for her." With every declaration, the shadows faltered, their forms flickering like candle flames in a gust. Clara seized the moment, racing towards the light, desperation fueling her stride. But as she approached, the path shifted, obscured in swirling mist. The presence of something ancient and sinister hung in the air, ominous like a storm cloud. Then she heard it again, the giggle, sweet yet tainted by mischief. "Mommy," it called, drawing her closer, swirling her confidence into a vortex of fear. Was it really Emma? Or a cruel trick, a further descent into madness? Frantically, she fought to clear her mind, refusing to fall again. "It's not real. You're not real," she shouted into the bleakness. But the shadow of her daughter loomed larger than life. The sorrow in its eyes, twin pools of despair, pulled at Clara's heart, a lure that threatened to entrap her. As she stepped into the light, the laughter hushed, replaced by a suffocating silence that filled her with endless dread. What lay beyond was no ordinary salvation. It felt vast and empty, waiting to consume her whole. "Mommy?" The voice echoed again, this time softer but tinged with an edge of desperation. Clara hesitated, every cell in her being screaming for her to charge forward while simultaneously freezing in place, torn between the pull of darkness and the flicker of hope. "Clara!" A whisper broke the silence, sharper now, the familiar voice urging her forward. "Don't stop." The shadows surged back, rageful now, their gnashing teeth bared like terrifying wolves. If she was caught, there would be no escaping again. Clara held her breath, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She lunged forward, every limb pushing against the weight, all of it for one last chance. Just as she reached the threshold of light, everything faded. The warmth was replaced by an icy grip clenching at her heart, dragging her back. "You should ve surrendered," the shadows hissed, reclaiming their hold. Heart racing, Clara fought against the sensation, pulse echoing her resolve. But was she truly back? Or was this another cruel phase in their game? A sudden thought struck her with the force of a hurricane. What if she had never left? What if this torment was only the beginning? Before she could dwell, a sharp cry sliced through the stillness. A voice she recognized, tinged with anguish. Emma, fear coursed through her, mingling with determination as she realized the truth. The game had only just begun, and the only way through was to face the horror head-on. Would she dare to confront the unknown waiting behind the veil? Clara's heart thundered in her chest, a drum echoing through the blinding light. Shadows clawed at her from every angle, but she pushed through, clenching her fists and feeding off her burning desperation for Emma. The icy grip around her heart tightened, but she refused to falter. The laughter had receded slightly, replaced now by Emma's fragile voice, crystal clear in the din. Mommy. Clara's breath caught as she bolted toward the sound, each step pulling her deeper into the emerging warmth. As she raced through the shifting haze, the tendrils of darkness recoiled, hissing and slithering away from her heat. They threatened to engulf her whole, but she pressed on, grasping at the fleeting echoes of her daughter. "Stay with me, sweetie," Clara shouted, summoning every ounce of courage. Each heartbeat was a promise to fight against the malevolent force that had tried to take her away. Emerging into a broad expanse of hazy white light, Clara's eyes adjusted. There, in the middle of it, stood a figure, small, golden curls glowing like a sunbeam. Emma. Clara's heart soared, breaking free from the weight of despair that had wrapped around her. She rushed forward, breaking through the last remnants of darkness that tried to seize her ankles, and finally reached her daughter. Emma. She knelt, arms outstretched. Emma moved to meet her halfway, and as their hands connected, a pulse of warmth surged through Clara's body, filling the aching void caused by the shadows. "Mommy!" Emma cried, her face lighting up with joy. "I knew you would find me." Clara felt tears stream down her face, mixing relief with the weight of everything they had endured. "I'm here, baby. I won't let anything take you away from me again." The shadows screamed from beyond the light, their voices filled with rage and desperation. "You can't escape. You're ours." Dark tendrils reached hungrily towards them, but Clara tightened her grip around Emma's hand, feeling the strength of their bond radiate warmth. "Not this time," Clara shouted, her voice rising above the cacophony. She focused, drawing from the love she had for her daughter, the gory memories of past pain coiling in her gut. "You will not take her." As if in response, Emma's laughter rang out, bright and unyielding. The laughter felt like shield against the darkness. With each giggle, Clara felt the shadows weaken. "Let us go home, Mommy," Emma urged, her eyes sparkling with determination that rivaled Clara's own. Clara squeezed Emma's hand tight and began to move, step by step, harnessing the light surrounding them. As they pressed against the darkness, Clara remembered all the moments they had shared, the bedtime stories, the sticky-fingered hugs after baking cookies, the sweet lullabies echoing in the stillness of the night. She would fight for every single one of those memories. With a final surge of courage, Clara and Emma charged toward the dark figures. "We are light. You cannot have us." The shadows wretchedly shrieked, their forms collapsing in terror as Clara and Emma barreled forward, the bright light swallowing everything behind them. They could feel the darkness dissipating, the air filling with the essence of love and safety, lifting weight from their shoulders. Suddenly, the darkness cracked, fracturing like glass underfoot. The shadows wailed, and for a moment, Clara thought she saw the faces of lost souls fleetingly trapped inside. Then, the sound faded, flinging them out of the abyss and into a brilliant, vivid world alive with color. Clara blinked against the sunlight. They were standing in their living room, sunlight streaming through the windows, illuminating the once shadowed corners. Clara clutched Emma close, tears of pure relief flowing. Did we really escape?" Emma whispered, her small voice trembling with incredulity. "Yes, my love," Clara replied, her heart swelling. "We're safe now. I promise." As they embraced, Clara felt the echo of shadows fade, whispers that had tormented her long gone. She had faced the worst, battled the nightmares, and defeated the darkness. The laughter of children echoed outside, punctuated by the sweet sound of Emma's delight. Clara looked out the window, the bright blue sky reminding her that they had returned to a world filled with light, life, and joy once more. Together, they stood united against whatever would come next, filled with an unwavering resolve, a choice to bask in the light and embrace love's enduring strength over any darkness. As she held Emma tightly, the shadows became a faint memory, a lesson in courage and light. They had conquered and emerged victorious, ready to cherish every fleeting moment, their bond unbroken, their lights forever shining together. Now, if you loved this conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep our stories thriving. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends. Trust me, they need to see this conclusion.